He paid, I changed. The soft hum of the city outside filtered through the half-open window, carrying with it the muted sounds of traffic and distant chatter. Inside my small apartment, the atmosphere was different, cozy, intimate, almost cocoon-like. I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the small cardboard box before me. It was nondescript, but I knew what it contained: the clothes, accessories, and the instructions that would change everything. I'm Alex, a 24-year-old barista by day and, until recently, a fairly average guy by most people's standards. My life was predictable, steady, and honestly a little dull. I worked hard, saved meticulously, and kept to myself. But beneath that calm exterior was a side of me that few knew existed: a curiosity, a fascination, a quiet desire that had never fully found its outlet. It all started with Emma. She was bright, magnetic, and daring in a way that made everyone around her feel both challenged and charmed. We met at a local art exhibit, and our connection was instant. She had a way of seeing people, really seeing them, and somehow she had seen me. My quirks, my hesitations, the private corners of my mind where I sometimes wondered what it would be like to step into a different identity. Emma never judged. It was part of her allure. Yet, despite our closeness, there was always a boundary I had kept. My secret hobbies, my fascination with makeup and feminine clothing, remained tucked away. I didn't fully understand it myself. Sometimes it was the thrill, other times a yearning to escape the rigid lines of my life. It wasn't about attraction, it was about transformation, about slipping into a persona that felt freer. And then the opportunity came. Or perhaps the temptation. A wealthy client at the cafe, where I occasionally did private events, had noticed me. Not for my coffee skills, though they were decent, but for my poise, the subtle grace with which I moved, the way I seemed to carry a certain understated elegance, even in casual clothes. He approached me with a proposal that made my heart pound. At first, it sounded absurd. He wanted me to serve not as a barista or assistant, but as his daughter for a week, fully dressed, fully transformed. The catch? He was paying handsomely. The ethical dilemma swirled in my mind immediately. Was it wrong? Was it degrading? Yet, beneath the swirl of doubt was a flicker of excitement, a thrilling, intoxicating lure I could not ignore. The money, the adventure, the chance to step completely out of my own life and into a new one. It was irresistible. Emma had noticed my distraction that evening. She cocked her head, curious, playful, and asked, "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, trying to articulate the surreal offer I had received. "It's complicated," I said finally, feeling the heat rise in my chest. She smiled knowingly. "Complicated often means fun," she said, her voice teasing. "You're thinking of saying yes, aren't you?" I did say yes. And that decision would be the first domino in a chain of events that neither I nor Emma could have predicted. Now, sitting on my living room floor, I stared at the box again. It was filled with silky dresses, delicate lingerie, makeup kits, and shoes that gleamed under the soft light. My pulse quickened. This wasn't a casual experiment. This was a full immersion, a transformation that would strip away the familiar and plunge me into a persona that was both alluring and terrifying. Emma hovered nearby, watching with her characteristic mix of amusement and encouragement. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to," she reminded me softly. But I could see the spark in her eyes, the excitement of knowing that this was a moment where I would step fully into the unknown. I took a deep breath and began. The first step was the foundation, makeup, carefully applied to soften my features and accentuate the femininity that had always lingered beneath the surface. The brushes felt foreign in my hands at first, almost like holding a delicate promise. As I blended the concealer, applied the blush, and swept the eyeliner with careful precision, a strange transformation began. It wasn't just physical. My posture shifted, my movement softened. My reflection in the mirror started to look like someone else entirely. Next came the dress. Silky, smooth, clinging in all the right places. I slipped into it hesitantly at first, marveling at the sensation. The fabric brushed against my skin, cool and exhilarating, and I felt a rush of both vulnerability and empowerment. The heels went on last, forcing me to straighten my back, adjust my balance, and walk with an elegance I had only ever imagined. Emma clapped softly, her smile radiant. "You look incredible," she breathed. The words were intoxicating, affirming, and terrifying all at once. I caught my reflection again and hardly recognized myself. Who was this girl staring back at me? And yet, who did I want to be? The phone buzzed. A message from the client, confirming that he would arrive tomorrow to see his daughter fully prepared. My heart skipped a beat. Tomorrow. The suspense, the thrill, the unknown. It all coiled inside me, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I realized that once I committed, there would be no turning back. Not entirely. I sank back onto the couch, letting the soft silk of the dress brush my legs. I could feel Emma's presence behind me, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Ready? Maybe. Excited? Absolutely. Terrified? More than I could articulate. And yet, in a way I didn't fully understand, a small, daring voice inside me whispered, "Yes. This is exactly where I'm meant to be." And in that quiet moment, the boundaries between Alex and the new persona I was stepping into began to blur. I didn't yet know how far this transformation would go, or how it would change me forever. But one thing was clear. Once I stepped fully into this new identity, nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, scattering golden stripes across my bedroom floor. I lay in bed, unable to sleep, heart hammering with anticipation. Today was the day, the first full day of living as her, fully immersed in a role I could hardly imagine until now. My mind raced with thoughts, doubts, and the undeniable thrill of stepping completely outside my usual life. Emma had already left for work, giving me the space to prepare. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wardrobe where the outfits from the client's box were neatly arranged. Each piece was more elaborate than the last, skirts with delicate pleats, blouses that shimmered subtly, and dresses that clung in ways that made me both nervous and excited. I picked up a soft pink dress, feeling the silky fabric slip through my fingers, and a shiver ran down my spine. I knew the stakes were higher than any casual experiment. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore, it was about performance, identity, and the fine line between excitement and exposure. The client's request was clear. I was to embody his daughter in every detail, from the way I walked to the way I spoke. And for me, the challenge was internal as well. Could I inhabit this persona fully without losing myself, or worse, being discovered? The first step, as always, was makeup. Sitting in front of the vanity, I carefully followed the instructions provided. Foundation to even out my skin, blush to soften my cheeks, eyeshadow to add depth, mascara to lengthen lashes that had never seemed so delicate before. Each stroke of the brush was a tactile thrill, a small surrender to the persona I was about to become. As I worked, I felt a strange dichotomy, a sense of empowerment in transforming my appearance, and a twinge of vulnerability, knowing that someone else would soon see me like this. With makeup complete, I moved on to the outfit. The pink dress slid over my shoulders and hugged my frame, accentuating curves I had only ever imagined. The sensation was both foreign and intoxicating, the fabric cool against my skin, the way it swayed with each movement. Then came the shoes, modest heels that forced me to adjust my balance and posture. Each step felt deliberate, calculated, yet oddly natural. I caught my reflection in the mirror and gasped quietly. The girl staring back at me was undeniably beautiful, yet there was an undeniable part of Alex lingering behind her eyes, unsure but thrilled. Once fully dressed, I practiced walking around the room, trying to emulate the poise and grace that the client expected. Every movement was conscious, the tilt of my head, the way I held my hands, the cadence of my steps. Emma had taught me to embrace the persona fully, to feel it in my body, and to let go of hesitation. I took a deep breath and allowed myself a small smile. This was more than a performance. It was a transformation, one that stirred emotions I hadn't anticipated. As the hours passed, The tension in my chest grew. I rehearsed lines, practiced expressions, and even tried a few different hairstyles. Each adjustment amplified both my excitement and my fear. What if I failed? What if I faltered and revealed my true identity? The stakes felt impossibly high, and yet the allure of this complete transformation was intoxicating. By mid-afternoon, I was fully immersed. The persona I had created wasn't just a costume. It was a character with its own presence, its own confidence, and its own charm. I caught myself laughing at the mirror, the sound almost unfamiliar, but thrilling. Emma had always encouraged me to explore this side of myself, and now, alone, I could push the boundaries further than ever before. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the apartment was interrupted by a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be the client early? Or worse, a neighbor who might see me like this? I froze, listening. Another knock, more insistent. I hesitated, panic prickling at the edges of my excitement. With careful steps, I moved to the door, adjusting the hem of my dress and smoothing my hair. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a delivery man holding a large box. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a flicker of anxiety. Inside that box could be anything, and I had to maintain my composure. I signed for the package, my fingers trembling slightly, and carried it inside. Inside was another set of outfits, more intricate and luxurious than the first, along with accessories that would complete my transformation. I couldn't help but smile nervously. This was getting more real with every passing minute. As the afternoon turned into evening, I experimented further with the makeup, trying different shades, blending techniques, and even a touch of glitter on my eyelids. The reflection in the mirror now felt less like Alex and more like a hybrid of both identities, a girl with my mind, my thoughts, my fears, but clothed in the persona I had created. The exhilaration was almost overwhelming. Emma returned home earlier than expected. My heart raced. Would she see the transformation and judge me? Would her expression reveal shock, amusement, or disappointment? She stepped inside, glanced around, and then her eyes settled on me. Her smile was immediate, warm, and approving. "Wow," she breathed, "you really went all out." Relief mingled with the thrill coursing through me. Her approval was validation, but it also heightened the stakes. Tomorrow, without her there, I would face the client fully in this persona. The evening passed in a blur of preparation and practice. I tried to anticipate every reaction, every movement, every possible scenario. The thrill of transformation mingled with a gnawing tension. What if I wasn't convincing enough? What if I lost control of the persona or revealed Alex beneath the surface? The anxiety was part of the thrill, a double-edged sword that sharpened every sensation and heightened every emotion. By bedtime, I was exhausted, yet wired with anticipation. I lay in bed, dressed in one of the softer outfits from the new box, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would demand everything from me: poise, elegance, charm, and above all, the ability to maintain the delicate balance between Alex and the persona I had created. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, fear and excitement, mingling in an intoxicating cocktail that left me both terrified and exhilarated. As I drifted into a restless sleep, one thought lingered in my mind. Once I stepped fully into this role, there would be no going back. Not entirely. The transformation was underway, and with it came the thrill, the danger, and the undeniable promise of change. I didn't yet know how far it would go, or how deeply it would affect me, but one thing was certain: my life would never be the same again. The morning sun spilled across the apartment, cutting through the blinds in sharp golden lines. My heart pounded as I stared at the mirror, fully dressed and made up. Today was the day I would meet the client in person, fully embracing the persona he had hired me to embody. The pink dress clung delicately to my frame, the heels forcing each step to be measured and graceful, and the carefully applied makeup highlighted features I had only begun to recognize as my own. I was a mixture of nerves and exhilaration, standing at the precipice of something that could change my life forever. The first test came almost immediately. My phone buzzed with a message: "Be ready at 10. I'll be there shortly. Panic surged. My breathing became shallow as I realized there was no more preparation. Everything I had rehearsed, everything I had become, had to hold up under scrutiny. Could I maintain this persona? Would the client see through the careful mask I had built over the past week? I stepped into the living room, each movement deliberate. I practiced walking and gesturing as if this were second nature. The thrill and fear were inseparable, heightening every sense. The doorbell rang, slicing through the tense silence. I froze, smoothed the dress again, and forced a calm smile. Opening the door, I was greeted by a sharply dressed woman who introduced herself as the client's assistant. She gave a small approving nod and gestured for me to follow her into a waiting car. The ride to the client's mansion was silent except for the soft hum of the engine. Every reflective surface mirrored a version of me that felt alien, yet intimately familiar. The reflection staring back was undeniably feminine, yet my mind retained every thought of Alex, my hesitations, and my fears. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once, a collision of identities that I had never experienced so intensely. We arrived at the sprawling estate, and the assistant led me through opulent halls into a lavish study. There he was, the client, seated behind an enormous mahogany desk. He looked up, eyes assessing me fully, and a smile spread across his face. "You've arrived," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "Perfect." My stomach flipped. The first few minutes were a careful dance of conversation, gestures, and posture. Every word I spoke, every movement I made, was scrutinized. I had to maintain the persona of a polite, refined young woman, but the client's gaze lingered in ways that made me acutely aware of every flaw I imagined I had. A slip of the tongue or an awkward gesture could unravel everything. As the meeting progressed, the client instructed me to move about the room, picking up objects, adjusting chairs, and even arranging personal items as he watched. I felt the thrill of control slipping, my hands trembling slightly, my knees aching from the heels, and yet the exhilaration surged. This was no longer practice, this was reality, and every step was a test. Then, an unexpected obstacle appeared. The door opened suddenly, and a family member, a younger daughter, entered the room. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, the persona I had so carefully cultivated faltered. I stumbled slightly, nearly knocking over a vase. The client's sharp gaze met mine, and my heart raced. I had to recover, to embody the girl he expected fully, and do so under the critical eyes of someone entirely unprepared for this transformation. I straightened, forcing a calm expression and a gentle smile. "Hello," I said softly, my voice steady despite the panic coursing through me. The young girl tilted her head, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "You're new here?" she asked. Panic flickered, but I maintained the poise I had practiced. "Yes," I replied. "I'm here to help." The client nodded approvingly, and the immediate tension eased, replaced by a new layer of psychological strain. Every movement, every gesture, had to be perfect. There was no margin for error. Hours passed in a blur of interaction, tasks, and carefully modulated conversation. Each command, each glance, demanded perfection. The heels bit into my feet, the dress clung tightly, and my muscles ached from constant attention to posture. Yet the thrill was undeniable. I was fully inhabiting the persona, and it felt more intoxicating than I had imagined. The client's approval was addictive, each word and nod sending waves of excitement mixed with fear through me. Just as I began to feel confident, the second twist occurred. The client excused himself briefly, leaving me alone with the assistant. She leaned slightly closer, whispering, "He doesn't usually allow mistakes." One wrong move, and the implication hung in the air. My pulse raced, adrenaline flooding my system. The persona I had built now felt like a tightrope stretched over a chasm. One misstep, one faltering glance, could ruin everything. I tried to steady my breathing, reminding myself of the preparation, the practice, and the transformation that had brought me here. The physical sensation of the dress, The heels and the carefully applied makeup became both a source of discomfort and a tool of power. Each step, each movement, was a performance that melded Alex and the persona in a delicate balance. The client returned, and the final obstacle emerged. A phone rang abruptly, startling both of us. In the rush, I knocked over a delicate glass figurine. Time seemed to slow. The assistant's eyes widened, the client's gaze sharpened. My mind raced. Could I recover, or had I blown the opportunity completely? I bent quickly, righting the figurine with trembling hands, and forced a light, apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry," I said, voice steady. Relief flickered across the client's face, approving but intense. I had passed the test, this time. But the climax was far from over. The client leaned back, studying me with piercing eyes. "You're impressive," he said slowly. "But there's more to you than I expected." My heart raced. Every word, every pause, was loaded with tension. Did he suspect? Did he know the struggle between Alex and the persona? I swallowed hard, forcing my composure to remain intact. The symbolic moment came suddenly. A mirror across the room reflected my image perfectly, combining the delicate femininity of the persona with the subtle remnants of Alex underneath. For a fleeting moment, the duality of my identity was undeniable. The thrill and fear collided violently, and I realized how deeply I had immersed myself. I was no longer just playing a role. I was living it, and the stakes had never been higher. The rest of the afternoon was a careful negotiation of tasks, conversation, and body language. Each time the client's gaze lingered, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Every small victory, completing a task flawlessly, maintaining poise, handling interruptions, was a triumph, yet the pressure never abated. I was balanced on a knife's edge, exhilarated, terrified, and utterly transformed. As the day drew to a close, the client finally nodded in satisfaction. "You've exceeded expectations," he said. Relief washed over me, but it was bittersweet. I had succeeded, but I was acutely aware that this was just the beginning. The persona had taken root, and returning to Alex alone at home would be a challenge I wasn't sure I was ready for. The drive home was silent, each mile a mix of exhaustion, relief, and lingering tension. The heels dug into my feet, the dress clung as always, and the makeup still felt vibrant against my skin. I caught glimpses of my reflection in the passing windows, reminders of the dual life I was now navigating. As I stepped inside the apartment, Emma was waiting. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with approval. "You did it," she whispered, touching my arm gently. Relief, pride, and a flicker of fear surged through me. I had survived the day, but the thrill, the tension, and the challenge were far from over. And then the phone buzzed, a new message from the client. "Prepare for tomorrow. More tasks, more expectations. Are you ready?" My stomach flipped. The suspense, the transformation, the double life. It wasn't over. It had only just begun. The apartment was quiet now, the echoes of the day's tension lingering in every corner. I collapsed onto the couch, the heels finally removed, my legs throbbing and knees protesting every step. The pink dress still clung to me, the makeup subtly smudged from the long day, yet I could feel the persona I had inhabited clinging to me as well. Emma sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. "You handled everything so well today," she whispered. Her eyes shone with a mixture of pride and something else I couldn't quite name, something sharp, expectant. "I knew you could do it, but wow." I forced a smile, though my heart was still racing. "It wasn't easy," I admitted, my voice quiet but firm. "There were moments I thought I'd fail, that I'd mess up and ruin everything." Emma's fingers squeezed mine. "And yet, here you are, stronger than you thought." But the reassurance was a fragile thing. My mind replayed the day, the client's intense gaze, the daughter's sudden intrusion, the mirror reflecting both Alex and the persona I had become. Every moment was etched in my memory, a constant reminder of how precarious this balance had become. The phone buzzed again on the coffee table. My pulse spiked instantly. The message preview glowed on the screen. Tomorrow, we begin a new chapter. Are you ready to truly live as her? A cold shiver ran down my spine. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone, staring at the message. Living as her. Fully. Permanently. Emma's eyes met mine, a question unspoken between us. She had witnessed my transformation today, my ability to step into this persona flawlessly. But did she understand the weight of what was being asked? I wasn't sure. I sat back, gripping the phone tightly, my mind a whirlwind of emotions: fear, excitement, exhilaration, and dread. The line between Alex and the persona was blurring faster than I could comprehend. Could I maintain the balance? Could I survive the expectations of the client, of Emma, of this life that was demanding I become someone I had only just begun to understand? The sound of a knock at the door jolted me upright. Emma glanced toward the entrance, curiosity and concern mixing in her expression. "Who could that be now?" she murmured. I approached cautiously, the echoes of the mansion still fresh in my mind, the way every step was observed, every gesture analyzed. My hand hesitated on the doorknob. I wasn't sure what, or who, awaited on the other side. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty. Only a small envelope lay on the floor. I bent down, heart hammering, and picked it up. My name was written on it in elegant, precise handwriting. Inside, a single card read, "Tonight, you are no longer Alex. Tonight, you are hers completely. Make your choice." I froze, the words burning into my mind. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye, and I barely recognized the person staring back, a mixture of fear and anticipation, vulnerability and growing confidence. The heels, the dress, the makeup, they were no longer just props. They were a key, a symbol of a life I was stepping into whether I wanted to or not. Emma's hand touched my shoulder lightly. "What is it?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. I looked at her, then back at the card. The weight of the day, the client's expectations, and the persona I had begun to embody pressed down on me. I could feel the thrill of living as her, the danger and excitement mingling in a way that was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. I don't know if I can go back," I admitted softly, my voice barely more than a whisper. Emma's eyes widened, and she said nothing. She simply held my hand, the silence between us thick with anticipation and unspoken understanding. The choice was mine, but the moment had already begun to slip away. I glanced at the mirror again. The reflection staring back was no longer just Alex. It was her. The persona I had practiced, feared, and embraced today had taken root. The line between reality and performance had blurred. The room seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the city continued unaware, but inside, everything had changed. My phone buzzed again with another message just as urgent, just as commanding. "Tomorrow, nothing will be the same. Are you ready to surrender completely?" I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the card. My mind raced. Could I do it? Should I do it? Could I return to the life I had known? Or had I already crossed the point of no return? Emma squeezed my hand one last time, and her eyes searched mine, waiting for the answer I wasn't ready to give. The doorbell rang again. This time, I knew the moment of reckoning had arrived. The choice was no longer hypothetical. The persona, the client, the life they were offering, it was all pressing forward, and I had to step into it, or be left behind. I looked into the hallway mirror one last time, took a deep breath, and prepared to face whatever was waiting on the other side. The screen fades to black, leaving the story unresolved, the audience suspended in anticipation. Will Alex surrender to her new life? Or will she fight to reclaim who she was? The tension hangs in the air, leaving viewers eager for the next chapter, their imaginations racing with possibilities.